It was supposed to be a normal family dinner. We'd gathered around the table, laughing and sharing stories, when my mom casually dropped the bombshell: they were taking the cottage from me. I had spent my entire life there, and now, in a single moment, everything I knew was being ripped away. My name is Selena, and for as long as I could remember, the family cottage was a sacred place for us. It was where we spent our holidays, where my parents, siblings, and I made lifelong memories. For me, it symbolized comfort, tradition, and belonging, everything a family should be. But that night, during what should have been a warm family dinner, everything changed. It started like any other evening: Mom's famous roast chicken, Dad's wine, and the usual banter about work and life. I thought nothing could ruin the comfort of that moment. The noise of laughter and the smell of the chicken filling the air made everything feel right. It was exactly the kind of night I wanted to remember forever. Then, without warning, my mom casually said, "By the way, we've decided to take the cottage back." I froze. I couldn't have heard her correctly. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But even as I spoke, my heart was racing. Something didn't feel right. She didn't even look up from her plate. She was calmly cutting her chicken, as if she hadn't just dropped a bombshell on the table. "Your father and I decided it's time for a change. We're going to sell the cottage and use the money for other things." The words hung in the air, suffocating me. I looked at my dad, hoping for some sign that this was just a misunderstanding, some joke that had gone too far. But he didn't meet my eyes. He took a sip of his wine, looking down at his plate. The silence in the room was deafening. I felt my pulse quicken as I struggled to process what she'd just said. "You're taking the cottage?" I repeated, trying to find my voice. "After everything we've been through there, all the memories." My mom finally glanced up, her expression so calm, almost cold. "It's just a cottage, sweetie. It's not the end of the world." I felt my heart clench at her words. "It's not just a cottage, Mom. It's part of our family's history. You can't just take it away like it means nothing." The room grew even quieter, the weight of her words settling in, and I realized they didn't care. They didn't care about the memories or the history that had been built in that place. It wasn't about family bonds or tradition anymore. It was about convenience. The cottage had become a burden they didn't want to carry anymore. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me. "How could you even think about selling it?" I whispered, the words sharp with emotion. "How could you make that decision without even asking me or anyone else? You knew how much it meant to me." She sighed, almost exasperated. "Sonia, we've been talking about this for months. You're an adult now, you don't need the cottage the way you used to. We don't need it either. It's just time." "Time?" I repeated, incredulous. "This is my childhood. My memories. You can't just throw it away." My mom's voice was cold as she wiped her mouth with a napkin. "You're making this into something it's not. It's just a house. A place. Not everything has to be so sentimental." The realization hit me hard, sharper than I expected. She didn't get it. She didn't understand why it mattered. To her, it was just a house. A place to get rid of when it wasn't convenient anymore. "You don't get it, do you?" My voice wavered as the hurt and frustration flooded me. "It's not just about the house. It's about everything that happened there. The summers we spent together, the holidays. It's about the family that was built in that place. You can't just take it away from me, from us, like it was never important." My mom's face remained stoic, emotionless. "It's just a cottage, Selena. We're doing what's best for the family." I blinked, the tears threatening to fall, but I forced them back. The silence in the room thickened, suffocating me, and I realized I wasn't going to get through to her. I wasn't going to get an apology, or even an acknowledgement of how much this hurt me. The truth was too painful to admit. I had spent my life trying to please them, trying to keep our family intact, but this moment made me realize that I would never be enough for them. I would never get what I needed from them, no matter how much I gave. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't believe you're doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, filled with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "I can't even look at you right now. I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my coat and left the room, the sound of my footsteps echoing as I stormed out of the house. It wasn't just the cottage I was losing, it was the last shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, my family would understand what it meant to truly care. The betrayal stung deeper than anything I could have imagined. I had no idea what I was going to do next. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in a family where love was conditional, and where my worth was measured by how convenient I was to them. The days following that dinner were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying the conversation over and over, the coldness in my mom's voice, the way my dad had silently let it happen. I felt betrayed more than I ever had before. The cottage wasn't just a house to me. It was home. And now, they were taking it away without a second thought. It wasn't about the place, it was about the years of memories, the foundation of everything I thought we stood for as a family. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself I would get over it. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. I couldn't just pretend like nothing had happened. The silence between my family and me grew over the next few days. My mom called a couple of times, but I ignored her. I wasn't ready to talk to her, not when I felt like she had ripped my heart out. My dad didn't call at all, and I didn't expect him to. His silence spoke louder than any words could. One afternoon, a week later, I got a text from my mom. It was short. "We need to talk. Please come over." I stared at the message for a while, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to go over there and tell her everything I had been holding in. The other part of me was afraid of what would happen if I did. Would she apologize? Would she justify her actions again? I sat on the couch, the phone in my hand, my mind racing. But in the end, I knew what I had to do. I had to face this head on, even if it meant hearing things I didn't want to hear. When I arrived at my parents' house, it felt cold, almost foreign. The place I had once felt so comfortable in now felt empty. My mom was in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot, as if everything were normal. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced up, offering a small, strained smile. "I made some soup. I thought you might like some." I nodded but didn't sit down. I wasn't here for soup, I was here to face what she had done, what they had done. "Mom," I started, taking a deep breath. "We need to talk about the cottage." Her face fell slightly, but she didn't speak right away. I could see the walls going up. She was preparing herself for a confrontation, but I wasn't going to back down this time. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Why didn't you even consult me? Why didn't you ask me how I felt?" She sighed, setting the spoon down on the counter. "You're acting like we've stolen something from you. We didn't do this to hurt you, Selena. We just thought it was time for a change." "A change?" I repeated, incredulous. "You can't just take something like that from me and call it a change. The cottage isn't just a building. It's a part of me. It's a part of our family's history. How could you not see that?" She looked away, her expression softening, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I understand that it's important to you. But you have to understand, it's not the same for your father and me. We're not young anymore. We don't need the responsibility. We're trying to simplify our lives." "I get that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But this isn't just about simplifying your lives. This is about taking something that's been ours for years, something that's been passed down, and tossing it aside like it doesn't matter." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she folded her arms and looked down at the floor, the weight of the moment settling between us. "Maybe I didn't realize how much it meant to you. I didn't think it was a big deal. We've talked about this for a long time, but we never really heard you, did we?" The words hung in the air, and I felt a flicker of something, regret. Guilt. I wasn't sure. But it didn't change the fact that it was too late. The decision had already been made, and I had been left out of it. "Why didn't you talk to me before? Why didn't you ask what I wanted?" I pressed, my heart aching. "I've been a part of this family for my whole life. And now, you're just cutting me out, without a second thought." She stepped closer, and for the first time in days, her eyes seemed to soften. "I'm sorry, Selena. I know I've hurt you, and I didn't mean to. But it's done. The decision is made, and we can't go back. Then why are you asking me to come here and talk to you now? I asked, the frustration bubbling to the surface. What is there to talk about? Her face flushed slightly, and she sighed. I guess I wanted you to understand why we're doing this. And maybe I wanted you to forgive me. I let out a bitter laugh. You think a simple apology can fix this? You think it's that easy? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood there, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and helplessness. I wanted to scream, but I held it in. Just understand this, Mom, I said quietly. I can't forgive you right now. Not when you've taken everything I thought was mine. Maybe one day I'll come to terms with it, but today isn't that day. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, my heart heavier than it had ever been. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. Relief. Anger. Sadness. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to the way things were. They had crossed a line, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I spent the next few days in a haze. The shock of my mom's casual dismissal still clung to me like a heavy fog, clouding everything. I tried to distract myself, work, friends, anything, but the words kept echoing in my mind, "We're taking the cottage from you." The emptiness in my chest grew heavier with each passing hour. It wasn't just the house. It was everything, the years of trying to make them proud, to make them see me, only to be reminded, time and time again, that I was never enough. They had never truly seen me. Not for who I was or what I gave. I had always been the one to clean up after their mess, the one to sacrifice what little I had for their convenience. I couldn't escape the feeling of betrayal, not from my mom, but from the entire family. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I belonged. The silence from my siblings, who hadn't said a word since the announcement, was deafening. But even worse was the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were all complicit in this. They didn't challenge Mom's decision, didn't stand up for me when I needed them most. I was alone. Completely and utterly alone. I found myself walking to the cottage that afternoon, not really knowing why. Maybe I thought I could reclaim something, some last piece of what I thought was my family. Or maybe I just needed to be in that space one last time, to process everything. The air smelled the same, fresh, piney, and familiar, but as I stepped inside, it felt empty. The rooms felt colder. The memories that once filled the space seemed to vanish into the walls, and I was left alone in the house that had always been my safe haven. I couldn't stand it. I left, slamming the door behind me. I couldn't bear to look at the place that I'd loved, knowing it was no longer mine. That evening, I got a message from my brother, Ethan. I hadn't heard from him since the dinner, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much. He wasn't one to get involved in family drama. "Hey, can we talk?" it read. I stared at the screen for a long moment. I wasn't sure I wanted to talk. What was there to say? Would he just apologize and act like everything was fine? Would he tell me to move on, like Mom had? But I knew I needed to hear him out. I needed some sort of closure, even if it was painful. So I replied, "Sure. Come over." When he walked in, I could tell by his face that he wasn't just here for a casual chat. He was tense, his eyes avoiding mine. I could feel the guilt radiating off of him. "How are you holding up?" he asked cautiously, sitting down at the kitchen table. I could barely look at him. "How do you think I'm holding up, Ethan?" My voice was tight, strained. "I'm furious. I'm hurt. I feel completely betrayed by everyone." He didn't answer right away. He ran a hand through his hair, looking more uncomfortable by the second. "Look, Selena, I know it's hard. But Mom and Dad. Don't." I cut him off, my voice sharp. "Don't you dare defend them. You weren't there. You didn't have to watch them rip my heart out in front of everyone. You didn't have to hear her say it's just a house. A house, Ethan. Not our childhood, not our memories. Just a house." He looked pained, but he didn't say anything for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. "I know you're angry. And I get it. I really do. But you have to understand, Mom and Dad aren't doing this to hurt you. They're just done with the place. They've been talking about selling it for years. Years. I scoffed, standing up, my voice rising. And they've never thought to talk to me about it. Never thought to ask if I wanted it. What, just because I'm grown up, I don't matter anymore? I'm sorry, he said, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I'm sorry that they didn't include you. But I don't think this is about you, Selena. It's not about us. It's about them. They've been carrying the burden of that house for too long. They're tired, and they just want to change. I wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong, that they were doing this to hurt me, that they didn't care about my feelings. But I didn't. I couldn't. There was nothing more to say. Nothing more to fight for. So, what now? I asked, my voice hollow. Do I just sit here and let them take everything from me? Do I just accept it? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked at me like he was trying to figure out what I needed, what I wanted him to say. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft. You need to decide if you're going to let this break you, he said quietly. You need to decide if you're going to let them control your life. Because you don't have to. You can walk away. You don't need to fight for them. You need to fight for you. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but they were the truth. I had been fighting for everyone else for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to fight for myself. It was time for me to stop being their scapegoat, their punching bag. It was time to walk away. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a choice. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. I couldn't stop thinking about what Ethan had said about fighting for myself, about walking away. But how could I? How could I just let go of everything I had worked for? Everything that meant something to me? I spent a lot of time thinking, trying to find some kind of clarity, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the cottage. It was about me taking back control of my life, of no longer being the person who put others first at my own expense. That morning, as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paperwork I had been holding onto for weeks, I felt a shift. I wasn't just fighting for the cottage anymore. I was fighting for my own peace of mind, for my sense of self-worth. I wasn't going to let my family continue to use me, to make me feel invisible. I knew what I had to do. But there was one person I needed to talk to first, Mom. I couldn't do this without saying something to her. I needed to make her understand how much this decision had hurt me. When I walked into the living room where she was sitting, she looked up at me, her expression unreadable. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady. She didn't respond, just nodded, and waited for me to speak. I took a deep breath. I've thought about it a lot. And I've made my decision. I'm not going to let you sell the cottage. It's mine now. You don't get to take it away from me. She stared at me, her eyes wide with surprise, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of something in her expression. Regret? Confusion? I couldn't tell. Selena, she started, her voice shaky, but I interrupted her. No. I'm done being the one who gives in. I've spent my whole life trying to please you, to make you proud. But this is too much. The cottage was supposed to be a part of my future. You took that from me without even asking how I felt. Her face softened, and she looked away. I didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought it was time to move on. Time to move on. You didn't think about me at all, did you? My voice cracked, but I didn't back down. This was about you. About your convenience. You didn't even care that it meant everything to me. I don't want your apology, Mom. I just want you to understand. For once, see me. See how much this has hurt me. She fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in. For a moment, I thought she was going to argue, to tell me I was being dramatic. But instead, she looked at me, really looked at me, and her face softened, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time, remorse. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't realize how much it meant to you. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I didn't need her to fix everything or give me back what I'd lost. But hearing her say that made me realize something important. It wasn't about her, it wasn't about the cottage. It was about me. I had spent years looking for validation from my family, from her, and all along, the only validation I truly needed was from myself. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision lift off my shoulders. I'm done fighting for your approval, Mom. I'm fighting for myself now. And I'm taking the cottage back. I'm not letting you sell it. There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. You're right. You deserve it. I'm sorry for everything. I nodded, but I didn't feel the need to say more. We had reached the end of the conversation, and in a way, it felt like the end of an era. A part of me, the part that had constantly tried to please, constantly tried to be the good daughter, was finally saying goodbye. And it felt liberating. I walked away from that conversation not with the anger I had been expecting, but with a sense of peace. I had taken back control of my life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the path to healing. It wasn't about the cottage anymore. It was about me. And for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself.